Hey guys, it's Michael here. You're watching another episode of Star Wars News and Views, and today I'm going to be looking about the Last Jedi Blu-ray release, and 4K release and digital DVD, whatever. The home video release is out now. It was originally just available as a digital download. So the full thing is out now, and I've spent the last week or so taking a look at all the extra features, all the documentaries and everything. So now I'm ready to give you what I thought of it and whether or not it's worth picking up. The Last Jedi does not have a 3D release in North America. There is a 3D release in Europe, I believe. So if you are looking for the 3D version of the film, which, you know, was released in 3D in theaters, the only way to get that is by importing it from overseas. So 4K is the new big thing now, and this is the first Star Wars film to be available in 4K. I can't say I've actually watched it that way, but I have seen the Blu-ray version of it. So of course, picture and sound is incredible as you would expect. There's nothing really I can say about either of those except it looks and sounds awesome. So extra features really is the main reason to buy this, because if you just want to have the film, you know, you can get it digitally for a bit cheaper, and you could have got it earlier. So the main sort of behind-the-scenes thing, the main documentary that you're getting with this is The Director and the Jedi, which it's pretty funny. Me and Patrick are actually in that for like 2 seconds. There's a clip from one of the first episodes that we ever did. In fact, it was actually a test, well, more like test footage, really. We filmed it in a classroom at University of Toronto because we were both in school at the time. So anyway, so that's kind of funny. People were messaging us saying, I think you guys are in the new Lucasfilm documentary. So anyway, it's a feature-length documentary. It's a full, what is it, 2 hours or 90 minutes, I believe? And it's really, really good. It's up there with the documentary from episode 1 called The Beginning. I would rank it up there with that in the sense that it's very candid and it's very, gives you a real inside look behind the scenes, because Rian Johnson had the idea of wearing a wireless microphone on him at all times. So that meant that the documentary crew, they didn't have to be in everyone's faces with the camera and making everyone aware that, oh, you're being filmed right now. They could sort of step back, but still have that dialogue of the conversations that are being had on a one-on-one basis between Rian Johnson and the actors or the you know, production crew or whomever. So it really does give you a sort of insider's look at the making of the movie in a way that the actors and crew normally would not grant a documentary crew access to, because they sort of forgot the fact that people are listening in on what they're saying. And of course, it's called The Director and the Jedi because it tends to sort of be framed in terms of Rian Johnson and their relationship with Mark Hamill. That's sort of the framing device. It does sort of encompass all aspects of the production, but it does tend to sort of have more of a structure to it that is sort of based around the producer and director team, and to a lesser extent, their relationship with Mark Hamill. It kind of begins just as production is about to happen, and it's more focused on the actual production side. Really beautiful photography in it, and good use of music and editing in the documentary. There's some really powerful moments behind the scenes with Mark Hamill, his final scene with Carrie Fisher, which it appears to be one of the last things they shot, and just seeing them filming that with sort of just a long, unbroken take from the perspective of the documentary crew, it's just really powerful, the acting ability that is on display there. So anyway, top-notch documentary. So the other thing that you get is sort of visual effect breakdowns, sort of behind-the-scenes breakdowns on you know, various aspects of the production. That's okay. That's not really too interesting, to be honest. You can take it or leave it. One of the really cool things is called Andy Serkis Live, where they've actually given you the throne room scene between Rey and Snoke, but without the CG Snoke as much as possible anyway, with the original Andy Serkis performance. I can't believe that man has not been nominated for an Oscar. I thought like his performance same year as Force Awakens for War for the Planet of the Apes was just amazing. I can't believe this guy hasn't been nominated for an Academy Award, but I guess it's like the Oscars, they don't consider motion capture or performance capture, they're calling it now, because it's not just motion capture. It's you're acting, and this is a performance, and it's really interesting to watch the original pure Andy Serkis portrayal of that. There's also a hidden track, a hidden audio commentary track of the John Williams isolated score. That's pretty cool. I don't think, have they done that on the other films? I'm not sure. But like most Star Wars releases, one of the most significant things is the deleted scenes. Those are the most interesting, as you know, actual scenes and footage. Star Wars, it's like seeing new Star Wars scenes, right? If it's the first time you've seen it. So that's always the most interesting part to a lot of people, is just getting more scenes from Star Wars. The deleted scenes here, I can totally understand why they were all cut. I think the only one that people sort of say, oh, I wish that was in the film, was Mark Hamill has a brief moment where he sort of like mourns the loss of Han Solo. He goes off on his own to his hut and sort of, it's such a quick thing. A lot of people say, well, why couldn't you couldn't take away 30 seconds from the Canto Bight sequence and put that in? It's really because that scene was supposed to cut from Mark Hamill sort of staring off and thinking about that to Carrie Fisher also having the same experience. And when they moved that scene with Carrie Fisher to a different part of the film, that meant that you wouldn't have that cut to make that scene make sense as a transition. And so I guess that was the motivation for cutting it. And that, you know, whether or not that was the right decision or not, that's the only scene that I think would have been better served being in the film. The other scenes, the extended 5 years chase sequence, that was definitely left out for a good reason. I think the version in the final film is already too long. I think you could have took that scene down by a bit, and there's quite a bit. Some sections are like actual whole new sections to that chase, like where they go through that, it's like a spa or like some kind of bathhouse or whatever. There's the alternate opening to the film where it would pan down from space, and then you think they're panning down to a planet, and then the camera moves back and you realize that it's Finn in his sort of cryo chamber thing, whatever it's called. And then he wakes up and goes Rey, like in the film. It's kind of clever, but I can see why it was cut. It's not the most interesting way of opening the movie, other than we've never seen a Star Wars movie open quite like that, where it's kind of like a clever, you know, bait and switch type of thing. There's an alternate version of the fight between Finn and Captain Phasma, which isn't really interesting. That scene's very early, and you can tell because the composites are obviously just rough, done with previs, and so the editing really doesn't work there. The editing's not really tight. But you can see that the sequence just wasn't working. It's not very interesting. It's kind of clunky. The pacing's not very good, especially because the editing probably wasn't done. Which is also a scene where you see Finn and DJ and Rose and BB-8 sneaking on board Snoke's flagship. And there's a pretty good moment, actually, where they're trying to go into the elevator, and there's like an officer that is kind of onto them, and he's trying to get to them in the elevator, and the door closes just in time. But then the sequence goes on, and there's a scene with Tom Hardy as the stormtrooper where he basically recognizes Finn. And hearing that scene described, it sounded like it was kind of funny and interesting that there would be a stormtrooper that would recognize him, and he says something like, "I didn't think you were an officer" type. But the way the scene plays out, it's done for tension, like there's about to be like some kind of shootout that happens in the elevator, and it really doesn't work. And of course, there's that really long sequence. It's a couple of minutes long, 3 or 4 minutes. You see Luke's final lesson to Rey, where she barges in on the caretakers having this party because she thinks it's raiders coming to attack them, and the scene just doesn't work. It can definitely, in a film that was already too long as it was, that's definitely one that could have been taken out. And also, Luke comes across as a bit of a jerk in that. So if people were upset with Luke's portrayal as it was, that actually would have made them more upset. So I'm glad that was taken out. Although it does kind of leave that lingering plot point of, oh, there will be 3 lessons, and then he only ends up giving her 2. I like to think that his final sacrifice is kind of like the 3rd lesson. So it's the ambiguity of that, taking that scene out, actually kind of, to me, kind of works. And then there's a couple of small things, like you see as Luke is being blasted by whatever they're called, the new AT-ATs or whatever. There's a brief moment where Rey comes in the Falcon and sees them shooting at Luke, and she goes, "Oh, I better go somewhere else." And it really would have disrupted the sort of emotional through line of that scene, so that makes sense. And there's a couple more little bits and pieces that are like 2 seconds long. These all come with commentary from Rian Johnson, which is a nice bonus. He doesn't really have a whole lot of interesting things to say about them, to be honest, but it's nice that he, you know, you get to hear his thoughts and sort of giving insight to, you know, the sort of motivation behind cutting them. And of course, actually, one of the most interesting things is a commentary track from Rian Johnson throughout the whole movie, which is really nice to give that to us right away instead of making us have to wait for another version like they did with Force Awakens. And it's actually a pretty interesting commentary track. He drops a lot of references to sort of films that they were kind of influenced by and stuff like that. You can tell that Rian Johnson has like a very good knowledge of movies and movie history. He talks about 12 O'Clock High, the movie with Gregory Peck, about World War II bombers influenced opening scene. He drops references to that horror movie from, I think, 2015 called The Witch. Battlestar Galactica being an influence on the character of Holden, which that's totally what I thought when I was watching it. There's a character in Season 2 of Battlestar Galactica, a battle-hardened admiral. And anyway, that's totally what I was thinking too, and apparently that was where he got the idea from. Yeah, overall, it's a really interesting track. It goes by very quickly. There's not a whole lot of dead air, and so he explains a lot of his decisions behind making the movie. There's a lot of bits of trivia from the production, editorial stuff, like the decisions behind the editorial process. It's pretty interesting and definitely worth listening to. I really like movie commentary tracks, and they're rarer than they should be these days compared to, like, I don't know, the height of the DVD era, like 2001 to 2006 or whatever, where, you know, even like celebrities that you wouldn't normally think of doing commentary tracks, like Arnold Schwarzenegger has a couple of commentary tracks which are actually hilarious, especially his commentary track for Conan the Barbarian, because I'm pretty sure him and John Milius are drunk when they're recording it. Anyway, but you don't see a whole lot of really good commentary tracks. They're fun to listen to, like if you're cleaning the house or whatever, you just put them on, sort of like listening to a podcast or whatever. So all in all, I would definitely recommend the Blu-ray release or the 4K release of Last Jedi. I don't really know what else they could have added to this to make it more worthwhile. Some of the previous Star Wars DVDs and Blu-rays, they've had a little bit more of like featurettes on, you know, the storyline or the characters or the stunts, but those are more culled from the EPK interviews, electronic press kit, so they're kind of like promotional fluff, so we don't really have those here, but I'm not really missing them. Anyway, so if you've got the DVD, the Blu-ray as well, leave your thoughts, because I'm curious what people think of it. As far as I can tell, it's gotten good reviews, and I would give it, you know, a solid, you know, 8.5 out of 10, I guess. I don't know. I guess there could be some additional features on it. There's always room for more, but I think what we got was very strong. It's definitely quality over quantity, and I'm not really left wanting more or feeling like I didn't quite get enough. Whereas the Force Awakens Blu-ray, I felt like, yeah, I think they could have added something else in there, which they did. They had retailer exclusive deleted scenes. The commentary track was on another release, the 3D release, so it's nice to have sort of, as far as I can tell, everything together in one package. I'm sure if they do a re-release, you know, a couple of years maybe of the trilogy or the new box set, they're gonna add some other things, but it's nice for what it was. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next episode.